So welcome to Lift the Rock this morning. As always, we want to give a special thank you to the Little Rock Regional Chamber of Commerce for all that they do to support the local entrepreneurial ecosystem and the Venture Center as a whole. And also a special thank you to the awesome people at Janny King. Janny King keeps our space spick and span every week, which with this many entrepreneurs can be a little bit difficult to do from time to time. No judgment. Also, we want to acknowledge the awesome local startup broadband development group that supplies our high-speed internet. It's the fastest internet you're going to find around town. Highly recommend that you bust out your phone or laptop or whatever Wi-Fi enabled device you have and hop on to our 1 gig up and down Wi-Fi. The network is Venture Center Guest. The password is Real Ventures. We do have some big news. Some of you are new and some of you are veterans, but we are moving to Tuesdays starting the 13th of September. We're really excited about making this change in order to enable even more of the local entrepreneurial ecosystem to participate in our weekly program. So I have a quick question. Okay, what's the one thing that you think exciting. I like when remotes don't work. What's the one thing that you think that entrepreneurs or startups need to be successful? I will take answers from the crowd, right? You already, because you've been here before, and you just know. Startups need connections. Yes, they need capital, they need other things, but in order to make all of the parts of the whole thing hum, they really need connections. And that's where you guys come in. I'm going to specifically ask you to make connections and introductions for today's entrepreneur. In particular, Ezra, this is not his name, Ezra Innovations is the name of the company. This is Michael. We'll introduce you in a second. Anyways, Ezra Innovations specifically is interested in meeting investors. So if you guys know any investors, and I know some of you do, some of you may be investors yourselves, you can feel free to write your own name down on the reference card. Please think about that as he's presenting today so that we can make those connections for Ezra to local investors. So, without further ado, I'm going to remind you to one other thing. Hit us up on social media. It's #LiftTheRock at Venture Center on Twitter, at The Venture Center on Facebook. Michael will tell us if Ezra has Twitter, because I couldn't find it anywhere.
No, we don't currently have Twitter.
No Twitter. So you can make one up for him. That'd be fun. All right, so I'm going to hand this off, and we're going to let Ezra get started. So you're going to point it over there if it gets finicky.
Right there?
Yeah.
To the laptop?
Yeah, to the laptop, exactly.
All right, good afternoon. My name is Michael Garnon. I'm CEO of a company called Ezra Pharma. We started back in 2011, formed, or actually 2009, to capitalize on novel UAMS drug delivery technology from the School of Pharmacy. For 2 years, we did not do anything with the technology besides try and partner with the big pharmaceutical companies like Eli Lilly. What we realized was we reached a critical point where we actually had to add value to this technology and practically apply it to branded and generic drugs on our own. So what we did was initiated a first round of capital at $6 a unit for a total of $5 million USD. That was back in 2011, and that funded our first pipeline of drugs, which I'm going to show you here shortly. 2 years later, the next round, 2014, valuation increased to $15 a unit for another $6 million raise. Then as of 2015, we final round at $20 a unit for a $2 million capital raise. And I'll show you briefly here how what we did with cash and how the valuation has increased. The inventor, Dr. Chung-Ju Kim, was a leading pioneer in drug delivery technology and happened to be a professor right here at the UAMS and had a proven background in licensing his drug tech to companies such as Merck, Eli Lilly, Pfizer. During the course of our time, we in-licensed additional drug development technologies, both from UAMS as well as from countries around the world, or companies around the world. So our goal is to duplicate a brand or generic drug or make a new and improved version of a branded drug. And I'll show you how that works in the actual industry. Our leading objective is to deliver better branded and generic drugs at better prices. And we all know how expensive drugs have gotten these days. What we need to do, though, is insulate those products against competition. And we do that through IP and manipulation of our technology. Essentially what we have is the Coca-Cola formulation of the drug delivery world. We have a pipeline of products now that are ready to go to market September of next year. And we're continuing to build value in the company through looking at various acquisitions of technologies going forward. I'm going to show you what the branded drug companies do to keep their prices high and where we come in to drive the prices down. What typically happens, and I'll use a drug, have you all heard of a drug called Ambien? It knocks you out, puts you down for 4 hours for people who have trouble sleeping. So the company Sanofi had a patent on the actual chemical, zolpidem tartrate, that protected it for a 20-year span. 5 years prior to that patent expiring, okay, Ezra identifies the generic to the improved brand. What the company does, Sanofi, they develop a new improved formulation called Ambien CR, which means controlled release. So it takes that drug from a 4-hour window to a 7-hour window. And they pull the old drug back before the patent expires, and they introduce the new drug before a generic can get on the market of the old drug. So we realize this trick. So what we try and do is take our drug delivery technology that's different and mimic the same controlled release properties and bring out a generic drug to the controlled release formulation that now has sucked in that $1.7 billion of sales, and we can come in as the first, second, or third generic and take a component of that. So that's our generic strategy, and what we call those are super generics. So here's another example of building value. Again, we look at commercialized products, we develop our product pipeline, and we look at our technology armamentarium. So we have 5 different drug technologies that allow us to duplicate virtually any drug out there in the market that's a solid oral dosage form. There we go. All right, so again, super generics, premium price, difficult to formulate oral products, have to be technology-based. It cannot be an aspirin or a Lipitor. We can make those in our bathtub. I could give you the recipe. This is complex stuff here. So brands with improved performance needs to be differentiated. I'll give you an example. Do you know of anybody who has hypertension? Everybody knows somebody. Grandma gets hypertension at 75 years old. So it's half the population after 70 develops hypertension. The leading drug out there is a drug called Diovan. That's made by Novartis. At its peak, it was selling $5 billion a year. All right, so what we did was we looked at Diovan and we said, here's this branded drug on the market selling $5 billion a year, but the drug only lasts 12 hours. Well, you're increased risk for a heart attack or stroke event first thing in the morning, and you're not protected. So what do? We need to make a controlled release, an improved branded drug of that. Secondly, people did not realize that Diovan has a food effect, meaning if you take that drug with food, with breakfast, first thing in the morning, you're only getting half absorption. So this is leaving many people uncontrolled first thing in the morning, and they're only getting half the drug. And the patient population did not know about this. We went out and conducted a research study on 70 cardiologists. None of them even knew this. 68% of them came back and said, we'd write the prescription of your drug. So I'll show you where that's in the pipeline, the next slide here. Again, that drug is going to hit September of 2017. Our next drug is a multiple sclerosis drug. It's a generic to a $2 billion U.S. branded market. The drug's called Gilenya. It's made by Novartis as well. Product development and manufacturing took place in 2014. We submitted to the FDA in September of 2015. Again, it's a hard to duplicate branded drug. Best case approval date next year, September 2017. So we're hoping next year is going to be a bang-up year for us. And again, if you look at the slide, this is what our pipeline looks like. Part of the philosophy I believe any startup should have, and you could call us an older startup, is don't be a one-trick pony. Raise enough capital where you have multiple shots on goal, because if one product fails or is delayed, you've got another 3 behind it. A lot of young companies, they swing for the fences, but if you strike out, your powder's gone, But 4 singles equals a home run anyway, so that's kind of our strategy with Ezra here. All right, again, getting back to driving value in the exit event for our investors. When people look at a company, they want to see pipeline, correct? So we have our 4 major products. Well, we have 3 products behind that are in the works, and I can't speak of those right now. They're in the top secret closet back at UAMS. Underpin our drugs with a strong technology base and IP platform. And that should generate an exit event that are very similar to what we found in the current pharmaceutical space. Latest acquisition I saw was a company called Canacordia. They sold out for $600 million. I think their total investment was $60 million. They did an IPO. And a company called Valiant came in and swiped them up last October. So we're hoping to put ourselves in that position. With latest acquisition of our drug called Maxalt, in addition to a new drug we're working on for the treatment of IBS-D, the valuation in 5 years has increased from $16 million to $65 million based off a $14 million investment. And if you look at that valuation trend, there's 2011, here we are at 2014, 2015, 2016, who knows what 2017 is going to look like when we're actually generating cash flow and we have these drug products on the market. Any questions how we raise capital? Well, friends and family is a typical answer, but key influencers, if you can find that one key influencer that is familiar with your product and familiar with your category and has been successful in that category, that has enabled us to raise $14 million. And I'll give you an example. So our valsartan extended release, which is an improved version of Diovan, we had I set up a meeting with a cardiologist. He brought in 10 of his partners, and that day we walked out with $1.5 million because he understood the drug, he understood the science, he understood what we're looking to accomplish. Same thing when it came to irritable bowel syndrome with diarrhea. We went to the gastroenterologist, we put 20 of them in the room, they all signed up once they understood the science and the drug and the pathway to market. Go for it.
Quick question. In that category, do you have any other types of investors, like somewhat larger pharma, or maybe a very large pharma?
Right. So we're meeting with a company's coming in today, actually, for irritable bowel syndrome with diarrhea.
I'll take 10%.
Yeah. Right. So you see the commercials are horrible, but there's only 2 drugs out there, Linzess and Xifaxan, I guess. You see a little guy that looks like an intestine and running around all over the place. So what we found with our IBS-D drug is that Linzess drug is only 14% effective. So 14% of the time it's going to help somebody, right? What we're finding, we're working 70% of the time. So you show the gastroenterologist that data, they're on board. Any other questions?
We'll have some more time for questions.
Sure. Well, that's our story. Yeah. Really, what I wanted to do is get out here in the community and answer any questions on how we got started, or if somebody's interested in a further, deeper dive, and present to them in a more technical fashion. So
We've got a couple of questions kind of
Sure.
queued up for you.
Yeah, queued up. She harassed me on Twitter last night. So I think I heard you say you can only make solid.
solid oral dosage.
Yeah. So
yeah.
EpiPen, not quite in your wheelhouse.
No.
Not a good candidate.
No.
All right. It's in the news. So.
I mean, that's part of the, we're not a philanthropic company, obviously, we're a for-profit company. But what I don't like seeing is Martin Storelli jacking up prices on an HIV drug when there's no alternatives. So companies like us need to walk in and make a generic of that right away. That EpiPen thing was just a fiasco, and it ruins it for everybody. You know, next thing you know, we're going to have pricing controls from the government, and it's going to be hard for everybody to make money because you got cheaters out there, or maybe not cheating, but unscrupulous business practices.
Now, you know, there's, back on the generic side,
Sure.
there's probably a dozen manufacturers, and mostly in India, that are looking for, doing the same thing, looking for generics, going to crank them out cheap.
Sure.
There's quality issues. Big question for you guys, are you guys doing it here? What distinguishes you from those folks there?
Right, so the FDA actually now has offices in 3 different locations in India, and they are now auditing twice a year, and they'll do what's called surprise audits. And you have to be CGMP, FDA certified to even get your drugs imported into the United States. So we walk in with our team of professionals to any manufacturing site, and we audit them. Our team combined has 80 years experience. Our lead chief scientific officer came from Teva, which is the largest generic drug company in the world. So we pay close attention to that. We just make sure our suppliers are squared away and meet the punch list. But again, you know, people cheating. At one time, a company called Ranbaxy, when they would do their testing, ideally you take your formulation and you match the blood level of the branded formulation in order to get approved for a generic. Well, what Ranbaxy was doing was taking the branded product, crushing up the tablets, putting that same product in their capsule, and essentially testing the same drug against each other, and they got caught cheating. So those are things we're very sensitive about, and they have since been shut down or trying to reopen again.
Well, you talked about this guy with the experience. It sounds like to me to get this kind of progress in a very specialized field must have a really good team. So why don't you talk a little bit about the expertise of
Sure.
the team you put together?
All right, so a little bit about the backstory of how Ezra started. So I got my start in investment banking in the healthcare sector, where my clients were pharmaceutical companies where I helped either sell, divest, or raise capital for different programs or projects. I left, went into consulting. One of my old clients took over UAMS BioVentures, and he said, we don't have anybody with pharma experience in Little Rock like you do from the perspective of getting things going, moving, and running forward. Now we're seeing that mushroom a little bit more. And I picked up from Florida, moved to Little Rock, and I realized, you know what, I need a team. So I opened up my Rolodex and I said, who are the best guys I've worked with from a scientific perspective, financial perspective, legal perspective, business development perspective. And I plucked them. I did my draft. I pulled in Dr. Shri Shah, who was the first vice president of research and development for Teva. He was the vice president of research and development for Perrigo, as well as Watson. So he's got 32 years experience. I pulled in Dr. Joe Fix as our chief operating officer. So he was former CEO of a company called Yamanuchi. He was a director at Merck, as well as Eli Lilly. So between the three of us, and then Tom Fitzgerald, who functions as my attorney, who was also CEO of previous drug companies and decided that it was too much for him to work in the public world. He's done over 100 transactions, M&A, business development, et cetera. So we've got what I call a star team. I would like to say it's very streamlined, very efficient. I made sure the 4 guys I pulled in could do the work of 20 guys in big pharma, and they know how to They know how to control and audit our different manufacturing sites and laboratories. So the team makes it. Go for it.
A question I had, you talked a lot about developing your products with the physicians. What do you do later on downstream to work with the pharmacy benefit managers and the insurers to get these products on the formularies?
Okay. That's a good question. So if you've been following healthcare insurance nowadays, the various PBMs, they're becoming stricter and stricter, and they're tending to favor the generic more. What we do is there's a couple firms that are specialized. There's two of them out there. One's called MME, the other one's called Two Labs Marketing, and they have relationships with all the PBMs and the top 10 insurance companies. And what they do, we hire them. They go out and they interview these people in a scientific questionnaire and help us determine what tier we'll be in regards to substitution, or if the doctor writes the script, it will not be substituted, and what our price points need to be. So once we have that established, 6 months prior to us launching the drug, so about 6 months from now, we're actually going to go speak with these PBMs and offer our drug at prices that these guys had already performed the intelligence for us on. It's a good question, though. Very good question.
You might need to describe this better than I'm
Sure.
describing it, and then answer the question. But is there an opportunity for you with, it's kind of similar to the Shkreli thing, with kind of these generic trolls that are taking the generics and saying, okay, well, we're the only people that are really making it right now. Let's jack up the price of the generic. You know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about? Yeah, describe that a little bit, and then is there an opportunity for Ezra?
Yeah, so everybody's probably heard of the EpiPen fiasco. Basically, they raised the prices on the branded drug because they're the only ones making the EpiPen. And then they said, you know what, we're going to launch an authorized generic to make ourselves look a little bit better. But they jacked up the price of the generic right about the same. So where's the ethics in that? There's an opportunity to do that, but I just see that that's not part of Ezra's mantra.
Authorized generic means.
Well, that's not I'm talking about drugs that have gone off of the patent.
Yes,
And
the Shkreli deal.
And, well, yeah, a little bit like Shkreli. It may have been exactly what Shkreli did, but it's like, is there an opportunity not for you guys to go to that price point, but to come in under, because there's a lot of room under
Oh, yeah.
some of those generics.
There is.
So,
Yeah, so I'm going to answer two questions real quick. So what he's saying is the Shkreli deal opens up a window of opportunity for us. What Shkreli did,
I'm asking whether
it does. What Shkreli did was he took a drug that's been around 50 years that they saw was great for the treatment of HIV. And 10 years ago, the drug was so cheap that people started pulling out of the market. And the only one left that Shkreli realized was this particular drug. So he acquired it, and that's when he raised the prices 4,000%. Now, 2 years ago, I would say the opportunity to make a generic would not have existed in a timely manner because the backlog at the FDA for an approval was at 36 to 40 months. But now, what Congress has passed is the Generic Drugs User Fee Act. So now when we submit our application to the FDA, we pay $60,000, now $70,000. What it's allowed to do is the FDA has hired more people in the Office of Generic Drugs, and what they're targeting now is a 12-month turnaround time. So that's going to allow for more rapid development of generics to other generics or branded drugs. Another question I was asked, what is an authorized generic? Let me give you an example of when a drug goes off patent. Let's use the drug Lipitor, because everybody's familiar with Lipitor. It was the number one selling drug in the world at its peak. I think it was something like $11 billion. Well, they knew the patent was coming off, and they knew, so Lipitor's here, this is 2012, they knew a generic is coming right here, and it's going to crash their market. They're $12 billion, correct? So what Lipitor did was hired another company, I believe it was Prasco, to say, you know what, we'll let you launch our exact same formulation, but we're going to call it an authorized generic so you can battle the oncoming generic over here. So if this guy's going to take 50% of that Lipitor price, this guy's going to battle in price and try and keep him down to 20%. That's what an authorized generic is. When a branded company hires another company and they say, we'll give you the formulation to compete in the generic market. Why does a branded company do that? 30% of the time, a brand company will keep their market share. The reason why is people come in and some people just don't trust a generic drug. They say, I want the brand. So 30% of the time, the brand wants to hang on to those sales, but they also want a piece of the generic market. They know they're going to lose either to Teva or Sanofi, or pardon me, Sandoz. So AstraZeneca wants a piece of that as well.
Is there, correct me if I'm wrong, is there a law which prevents American consumers from prescribing or from acquiring drugs from abroad, say from Mexico or Canada? Is that...
Mail order drugs, it's being done. Scheduled drug you cannot. Like a oxycodone or Ambien or a psychotic.
Yeah, the reason behind, preventing Americans from acquiring drugs from abroad has to do with quality, at least that's the argument.
Yes.
But would that undercut part of your business strategy if cheaper drugs were available from companies in India or Canada?
Well, we do have international patents on our formulations and on our drug delivery technology. So if that was to happen on one of our branded drugs coming in from Canada, we can prosecute. What we probably are going to do anyways is conduct what's called an ex-US licensing deal and work with a big pharmaceutical company in Canada to distribute our drug up there. It's highly unlikely that'll come back over here. So.
That's his question about, is it...
There are laws against scheduled drugs, James. Scheduled. And that's your oxycodones and your barbiturates and opioids.
But not.
I can't answer that specifically.
Right.
I know it's being done. I see it advertised on the radio, or hear it advertised on the radio sometimes.
Sounds like you've got a number of drugs in the works now. How close are you guys to getting your first product?
We have 2 that are scheduled to hit next year. So, ideally September. So, drug development takes a while.
Anybody else? All right then. Well, before he walks off, since I neglected to bring a lot of energy to welcome him to the front, how about we give him some love to thank him for the presentation?
Thank you.
Woo!
Thanks.
Oh, Brian, can you bring me
Appreciate
that real quick? Hold on, don't run away. So it's just a little thank you for presenting. You get
You're
one of
kidding
the
me.
limited edition Lift the Rock coffee mugs, so
Nice.
know that you were special.
Thank you, Jessica.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So as a quick reminder, all of you guys have little cards in front of you, right? So remember at the beginning when I said we were going to specifically task you with making introductions. I'm going to ask that you write your name and email address at the bottom of the card where indicated. We should turn that off. Thank you. Whee! AV is fun, right? So anyway, I just need you guys to hook us up, or to hook Michael up with some investors. So he also made a comment that maybe you sat down with a group of cardiologists and those kind of people. So are there any kind of medical professionals that you could use connections to, maybe in other cities or?
Yeah, so when we launch our hypertensive drug, we want full support of the cardiologists in the U.S. There's not that many of them now that are sent conferences, but we're expressing We've already raised $2 million. We're looking for another $9 million, and that'll get us through phase 2A clinical studies. At which time we're hoping we can sell off to big pharma, and part of that capital could come in today with our meeting this afternoon. But gastroenterologists supporting us on that one, they come to us.
Excellent. So that gives you a couple more venues to look at. We can say, do you know a cardiologist, right? Even if that's your physician, if you've got the contact information, that'd be rockin'. So if you can make that connection for us, gastroenterology specialists and investors. So this is the part where you bust out your pen and you write down on the little card who it is that you're going to commit to introducing to Ezra, and then Ashley is going to collect those cards from you in just a second. So those of you who have been to Lift the Rock before know that one of the things that we do is connect startups with the local business community, and we also celebrate success. Success being a traction event. So my lovely assistant is now going to bring forward the gong. Yes. Maybe. All right. Here we go. Here comes the gong. So today we have one of our very own startups celebrating quite a nice traction event. Yeah, you should totally back up, Michael, because it's a little terrifying. All right. So you're going to come on up here and tell us why you're ringing the gong, Corporate Insight Strategy. Also, I'm going to move the gong a little. The gong needs to be by the camera, right? Yeah, bad things could happen. All right, here you go, ma'am. Do it up.
Thank you.
Oh, you don't have a mic. Just talk loud.
That's okay. I know you
Grab it.
have to be loud, I think. So this week we signed our very first channel partner.
Don't spill the coffee. So this week, Corporate Insight Strategy signed our very first channel partner in Dallas, a company by the name of Trofero that has 10 management consultants in-house, so we're very excited about that new partnership.
So somebody's going to get a picture of the gonging. Yes. Hold on. Let me let your staff bust out a phone. Okay. Okay. Here you go. Do it up.
All right.
Make it good. Nice. Woo! Okay. Yes, sir. Do you have a traction event?
I'd like to go on our first FDA submission.
Oh, I would love that too.
Second.
Okay, so an impromptu gonging by Ezra Innovations for FDA submission. No, please don't put the mic. Holy crap. We would permanently break everything. Okay, but do it good. Oh! Wow! Well, that was exciting. I didn't know it could do that. So, no, I'm going to hold it for a minute. All right. So anyway, thank you for coming to Lift the Rock. Next week, we're celebrating Med Week with the Little Rock Chamber of Commerce, and we'll have two fantastic entrepreneurs in here. Some of you may have had the opportunity to try out Aretha's beverages at Taste the Rock a couple months back. If you haven't, you should. And they're going to be one of the awesome entrepreneurs here next week. I'm hoping they'll bring samples. I don't know, Chauncey. All right, so we'll see. There might be samples. Anyway, we'll see you guys back here, same time, same place. Next week is the last Wednesday for Lift the Rock, and on the 13th, we'll be moving to Tuesday. So have a great day.